The House of Representatives under Speaker Ferdinand Martin Romualdez is inching closer to charter change. Today, resolution of both houses, number 7, was approved on second reading, directly following the timetable set by Majority Leader of the House, constituted as a Committee of the Whole, Boyet Gonzales. What does this mean? Can the second Marcos administration really pull it off and succeed in dancing the cha-cha? Good evening. I'm John Nery, and you are in the public square. I was at the multi-party summit convened by Participate today and learned much from the discussion. I am delighted to say that two of the summit's outstanding speakers are joining us tonight. Rafaela Paeng David is president of the Akbayan party, and Leon Flores III is Secretary General of Aksyon Demokratiko. Welcome, Paeng and Leon, and thank you for joining us in the public square.
Thanks for having us, John.
Thank you for having us.
I'd like to start by asking both of you first where you and your party stand on charter change in general and charter change in this particular Romualdez-driven instance. I'll start with Paeng and then Leon.
Yan. Sige. Hello po ulit, Sir John. And sa mga viewers natin, special Happy Women's Month sa mga kababaihan. Just to answer siguro yung question, we in Akbayan stand against charter change at this time. We believe that it is ill-advised, it is wasteful and divisive at this moment. While we understand na ang Constitution naman ay isang living document na dapat regularly i-review at ina-update at dapat ay nag-respond sa changing times and political context, social development context natin. Naniniwala kami na baka at this point hindi makakatulong sa atin ang charter change dahil nakikita natin na it's happening amid political context where we see highly divisive political terrain. Especially we're seeing this moves for charter change amid an escalating dynastic war between the Marcoses and the Dutertes. So yung unity team na nakita nating nanalo noong 2022, sila ngayon yung nakita nating nag-showdown. At unfortunately, yung constitution natin ay nagagamit parang battleground doon sa awayan na yon. You have on the one hand the champions of charter change, and on the other what we read as fake oppositionists doon sa charter change, kasi nga yun yung nagiging plataforma nila para ipakita yung kanilang opposition in the Marcoses. And that political context already models the terrain and bumababa din yung trust natin dun sa prosesong pinagdadaanan in the conversation that we're having pagdating sa charter change. Kaakibat din nun, medyo talagang nakababa palalo nung trust level natin doon sa push for charter change, yung nangyaring People's Initiative. O para sa atin nga, Paeng People's Initiative. Enero, nagulat tayo pagkatapos ng ating Christmas break, ay biglang meron na palang gumugulong na People's Initiative. Na alam naman natin, may mga reports and validated ito on the ground na the signatures were given in exchange of either ayuda at iba pang mga promised na kapalit noong signature na hindi naman din na-explain ng maigi sa mga mamamayan ano bang pinipirmahan nila. So meron parang signature buying tayong nakita, no? So lahat ng ito again, it really puts a lot of shadow doon sa ano ba talagang intensyon nitong charter change na ito. At tayo ay nagbababala na baka pag binuksan natin yung charter change, yung charter natin, magkaroon ng charter change, baka maging Trojan horse ito. Kumbaga, sabi kasi nila, economic provisions lang daw yung papalitan. Pero kasi pag binuksan nila yan, anything goes. Para kang may binuksang Pandora's box or can of worms. So, ang ating worry ay baka parang Trojan horse na parang pag pinapasok mo sa bahay mo, hindi mo na alam, nandoon pala, akala mo makikikain lang. Yun pala ay meron ng ibang intensyon na nung
Okay.
pumasok sa yung bahay. So again, yung ating concern ay at this point, while we understand that the Constitution is, again, a living document, at this point, we don't have the best political context na pagdaanan yan. And we fear na it will only champion certain self-interests amid an escalating dynastic war between the Marcoses and the Dutertes.
Thank you. We'll get back to that dynastic war in a bit. Leon, what is the stand of Aksyon Demokratiko?
Yes, kami sa Aksyon Demokratiko, nagkaroon na rin ng maraming huddle at pag-uusap hinggil sa charter change, lalo na nung pumutok din itong People's Initiative, right? Parang like a thief in the night, bigla nilang bumulaga sa maraming tao. So kami naman, while long time ago we would have been, automatic no to charter change. Ngayon kasi, given the medyo matagal-tagal na rin kasi yung konstitusyon natin, we feel that maybe it's time to review it. But kung ang charter change man ang sagot, ano yung sinasagot niya? Ano yung tanong na sinasagot? To whose interest will it actually cater to? Kung babaguhin man ang ating saligang batas, kaninong interest ba talaga ang kanyang pagsisilbihan? So yun yung tanong ngayon, which would lead us to think twice also about the certain interest behind it. Which leads us to, yes, I agree with Paeng here, no, na parang yung pamamaraan din na ginawa dun sa People's Initiative kung saan other than bumulaga lang siya, there was really on the ground. Klaro na ang daming bigla na lang nakalap na signatures at there are real stories on the ground na kinalat ito without people really knowing ano yung sinainan nila, ano ba yung, at may binigay pa na kapalit, yung iba binigay during the distribution of ayuda and other mga government events. So, with that in mind, medyo we have some hesitation on the kind or on the manner by which it is carried out. And we feel naman we go by the wisdom of many of the legal luminaries na nagsabi, medyo yung People's Initiative ngayon, wala talaga yung Santiago ruling will have to be taken up by the Supreme Court, which will take time. Which is why siguro ngayon, medyo minadali na yung on us na siguro, na track. But kami sa Aksyon, at first we were really open naman to any discussion, but given the tenacity, yung parang audacity ng paggawa at then medyo may mali talaga yung pamamaraan, lalo na itong People's Initiative, we take a step back and say, baka kailangan talagang questionin din yung intention.
Leon, your party was founded by a statesman who before he became an outstanding senator was an outstanding congressman.
Yes.
Anong basa mo sa House of Representatives ngayon? Are the numbers there for charter change for Speaker Romualdez?
Well, tansya ko kasi given how the winds are usually pag kung sino yung ruling party, it looks like they will really leave no stone unturned to get this passed. So basa ko marami sa ating mga congressman, may ilan siguro na mag-o-oppose, pero the sad reality is tansya ko merong maraming mag-ano. So sana makinig sila kung ano yung tunay na ng taong bayan, kasi we know naman how disconnected some of our lawmakers are, hindi nakikinig. So sana we need to have more constituency, yung mga grupo, mamamayan, mga sektor na kailangan magsalita about this and kailangan maging bahagi tayo ng usapan. Ang nangyari kasi ng People's Initiative, we felt so, alam mo yun, hindi tayo kasali, hindi tayo kasama. So dapat siguro they will earn our trust. They will earn the trust of their fellow party mates, of the mamamayan, the citizens, if they make the people part of the conversation. So even with this, with the whole discussion that we're having now, I think the numbers will be there for whoever's leading it, but if people will speak against it and if people are willing also to make themselves part of the conversation, I think medyo mayroong konting preno siguro mangyayari.
So yes, I'll ask a quick follow-up. No, so this attempt now is the second one after the People's Initiative. It's more surgical, no, and politically clever. No, it's the resolution of both houses number 7 seeks to include just the phrase that says unless otherwise provided by law in 3 specific provisions having to do with ownership of public utilities, educational institutions, and advertising businesses. Um, sabi ko, quick question, pero ang haba nung pasakali. My question is, would that make it easier for congressmen to say, ito lang naman ang gusto ni speaker eh, parang why not? Parang ganun. I mean, is it packaged to move?
Paeng.
No, no, for Leon. For Leon first.
Ako talaga, sige. Um, well, alam mo, while ito yung naipasa, no, the moment kasi mag-convene into a constituent assembly, there will always be the hesitation or fear that it becomes a Pandora's box, open to all talaga, open to all kinds of reforms, pwedeng buksan, no, while limited lang yun sa tatlo. Of course, that is contingent also on the kind of trust that people will have on our institutions, that will they be really carry out the kind of reform that is really beneficial para sa ating mga kababayan, knowing that all this time hindi nila may pasa yung ibang mga panukalang batas like freedom of information. Kanina pinusapan natin political party reform, anti-party switching, all these other important reforms. Ayaw may pasa-pasa sa ating mga kamara. Do we really trust our institutions to speak for us? Given that we've even heard some rhetoric, may iba dyan na lawmakers, ayaw people mas ibang resolution dahil kaibigan nila, isang, di ba, personality. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Will they be acting in the interest of the Filipino people? If so, lo and behold, pero ngayon, Pandora's box yan. Once mabuksan na yan, it will be like a Trojan horse. It will open all sorts of discussion and reforms.
Paeng, sorry. You want to answer that first? I have another question for you, but go ahead, please.
If that's fine. Gusto ko lang sasugan yung sinabi ni Leon. Una, whose interest is it? Definitely not the people. I think 2 months ago, may lumabas na survey by Okta na ang charter change, 1% lang ng Pilipino ang nagsasabi na it's important. So definitely, kapag tinignan mo yung surveys, through and through, nasa pinaka mababa. Wala yan sa consciousness ng mga mamamayan. Ang mas mahalaga sa kanila, presyo ng bilihin, yung sweldo, at iba pang talagang mas urgent na concerns. But just to add doon sa, kaya nga tayo mag-economic, we will revise yung economic provisions ng Chacha para bumuti yung ekonomiya natin, mas maraming investments. Medyo suspect kasi yung reason na yon na binibigay ng ating mga champions ng Chacha. Kasi una, the first amendment that they pushed for under the PI is a political reform. They're changing the checks and balance doon sa Senate and sa Congress natin. So doon pa lang, medyo suspect na. Pangalawa, medyo questionable yung they want to liberalize further yung mga industries na ito. When in fact, our Congress should know, they passed recently several legislations na hindi na kinailangan ng Constitution that liberalizes a lot of our industries here in the Philippines, mula sa Public Service Act, Retail Trade Liberalization Act, yung Foreign Investment Act, at ito ay mga recent laws lang, 2022-2021, na naipasa. So, maraming pwedeng gawin kung yun yung intent, no, na hindi kailangan ng charter change. And in fact, sa dami ng ikot ni Presidente Marcos, kitang-kita natin ang dami bigla ngayong pumapasok na investors or at least pledges. Sana matupad yung mga pledges na yon. And hindi naman naging kondisyon ang pagbabago ng charter change. So ang question ay, dahil nga ba to sa economic provisions? Kasi maraming arguments actually that show na you don't need charter change if you want to have a healthier economy.
Paeng, the Senate has a similar measure, no? Resolution of both houses, number 6, pushed by Senate President Zubiri. Your party, of course, is a member in the Senate and an outstanding senator in her own right. Ano ang basa mo sa Senado? Are the numbers, I know the context is different, but are the numbers there as well for charter change for Senate President Migs?
Well, tinanong si Senator Risa, syempre, sobrang thankful tayo for her, holding the ground sa Senate and making sure na this push doesn't pass. Yung sinabi niya just a few days ago ay, hapon lang tayo na RBH 6, it's barely alive. So ano tayo, parang confident tayo na our senators, hopefully will hold the line. Sa ngayon, ang political mapping ng opisina ay sana may at least seven na hindi
Senators.
magpupush ng RBH 6. Yes, 7 senators. Sila kailangan nila kasi mga 3/4 eh. So if we get 7, hindi nila makukuha yung 3/4 nila. So we also want to use this opportunity, no, and tama yung sinabi ni Leon na we need a constituency around this. Push lang natin yung mga senador natin na sana mag-hold the line sila. Kung 7 yan, sana madagdagan pa sila na talagang titindig at hindi hahayaang mag-proceed yung charter change at yung RBH 6.
I have a follow-up for you, but I'd also like Leon to answer this. No, Zubir has said that first of all, RBH 6, he's looking at October pa, no, taking it up in the Senate in October, and then he also said that there are trust issues. The senators themselves have trust issues with the House of Representatives. Totoo ba to? Are these feigned trust issues o talagang malalim ang hugot? Paeng first and then Leon.
Oo, kasi yung Congress medyo nag-first blood eh. Yung People's Initiative nila na nagpo-push ng joint voting, effectively, that drowns out the voice of the Senate. So dun pa lang sa push ng Congress, and syempre may mga reports na talagang it was our politicians in Congress na nag-push ng People's Initiative, dun pa lang, yung joint voting, yung Senate talaga ay aalma. Kasi effectively, pag nag-joint voting sila sa isang constituent assembly, parang sinabi mo, yung 300, yung kongreso mo na you have 300 na congressmen versus yung 24, pag lahat yun isa ang boto, halos wala ng boses yung Senado mo. And at ang nakakatawa pa dyan, pag tinignan mo yung RBH 6 at RBH 7, yung RBH 6 kasi, klaro na separate voting. If my yung recent version ng RBH 7 ay ganun pa rin, silent sila doon sa joint ba or separate. Pero yung RBH 6 clear na separate dapat voting. So in short, parang meron pang alam mo yon, meron ka pang ganoong sa RBH 7, so pwede pa rin ang joint voting kung mapush ang RBH 7. So parang meron tuloy mga questions on, meron ba talagang in good faith na ipupush natin na resolution of both houses na lang. Bukod doon, and I think this is something that we also need to monitor, yung People's Initiative na pinush ng Congress, hindi yun necessarily patay na. Naka-hold lang siya. So, ibig sabihin, may mga ganoon pang mga possibilities yung mga champions ng Chacha na kailangan bantayan natin hanggang ngayon. We have to be vigilant. Na nagdadagdag doon sa level of mistrust, I suppose, doon sa dalawang houses.
Leon, hindi lang pala taong bayan ang may trust issues.
Yes.
Mga senador.
Ako, I believe that totoo naman yung hinaing at medyo nasaktan yung Senate niya, that effectively, the proposal sa People's Initiative, tama yung sinabi ni Paeng, no? Jointly, effectively, parang walang role, one of many ang senators, no? And they're already an institution of and by themselves as a separate chamber nga. So they felt undermined by the People's Initiative to put the reform as, di ba, jointly silang magbo-vote. So medyo dun pa lang, and then there was this verbal exchange in both plenaries, no, sa lower house and then sa Senate mismo. So tansya ko totoo naman yung hindi naman to medyo drama lang noon. May konting talaga yung Senate. So this is the opening also that it should be built on mutual trust, transparency, which we are not seeing. So if yun nakikita din ng mga senators natin na, di ba, ina-undermine sila, walang transparency on the part of another party, so talagang mahirapan din to get the numbers in the Senate if ganun yung patuloy na mangyayari. Ako naman, yung People's Initiative, hindi na nagko-collect yung COMELEC. So there are medyo may mga breaks na, no, yung sa People's Initiative, pero nandyan pa rin siya kasi nakadami na rin ng signatures daw, sabi, di ba? So they're just there. Anytime pwede yan i-continue, anytime pwedeng i-submit ulit sa COMELEC, even though hindi pa sabi nga ng COMELEC nag-stop, but there will be legal questions to it definitely. I think matatagalan yung People's Initiative. Some people are saying it's dead on the pan, but siguro naman, let's not, let's not be too complacent about it because nandun siya. At the end of the day, nag-mobilize ng tao, nag-mobilize ng resources to get it running. So, I believe that the People's Initiative is just there, waiting in the wing. But ngayon, ito yung umuusad. Malay natin, ano lang din yun, pang ano lang para ma-push din tong CONAS. Because I'll be honest, kami sa Aksyon at first also parang we are a bit hesitant on CONAS. Not because we don't have people in the chamber na isa lang yung congressman namin. But it's really more of we'd rather have a constitutional convention. Kung saan, kung may constitutional convention kasi as a way to change our charter, we feel that more people will be part of the discussion because sila yung boboto ng representative nila. Then they could hold debates, dialogue, discourse, o ano ba yung gusto natin i-push. They could make the people part of the process, which we feel right now, kung Constituent Assembly, to be honest, ngayon pa lang, usap-usap, people are not part of the process yet. They have to make, our Senate and Congress have to make the people feel that they are part of the process.
At the multi-party summit today, both of you emphasized the importance of principle and platform. And of course, this is characteristic of your political engagement. And here I am asking you to do a bit of political math. Pero di ba kailangan din, central to the task of politics is the ability to properly count the number of heads. No? Tama naman, di ba? I mean, we do need to know if there's a chance it will actually happen. I mean, is it possible that the House will force the issue and I don't know, leave it up to the Supreme Court to decide? Dahil sa bilang nila, sa tingin nila, they have really the numbers with them? Maybe Paeng and then Leon?
Well, kung titingnan po natin yung bumalaga natin ng January, it seems like this is really at the top of the agenda. And even the House, yung bilis ng hearings nila for RBH 7 na just a couple of days, tapos napasa agad nila. Tapos, and baka talagang mag-third, kasi second reading, nagpumasa na siya ngayon. Let's see if kaya nilang matapos siya before Easter. Ibig sabihin talagang minamadali, ano? So, what we're seeing is there's a really energy and a certain political will dun sa ilang mga nasa majority sa Congress. And we need to be prepared for all scenarios. That includes making sure ngayon sa Congress pa lang, we campaign against it, hopefully get our congressmen to take second thought. Ganun din sa Senate, kaya mahalaga talaga yung Senate na battleground. Itag natin lahat ng mga senators natin kung kaya para talagang manindigan sila. And may next battleground ka pa if these things escalate and then merong mga questions within the Supreme Court about it. So yung lahat ng mga possible battleground kailangan paghandaan natin kasi nga mukhang merong binubuhos din na resources on this push.
Definitely, pushing reforms is really a numbers game. I think many of the reforms were also a battle for numbers. And marami namang naipasa in the past na maayos na mga legislatura or mga batas na it was a numbers game, no? Some came close fight. Pero again, for this charter change, while it may be a numbers game, we have to prove that there are also numbers of people who are opposed to it. We have to remember that sino ba? Who are the stakeholders here? Ang taong bayan, even itong advertising agencies, public utilities. Ngayon, ang mahal-mahal nga ng kuryente, mahal-mahal ng tubig. Tapos, open tingnan natin, will that necessarily open to competition or will that, di ba? So, there are also interests at play. So, malaking debate talaga itong economic reform lang. But yan, sa economic reform pa lang yan, ha? Feel natin, di na tayo kasama, yung mga tao, they felt that they need to be part of the conversation. All the more, pag pumasok yan sa plenary and then magbukas yan, kailangan magbantay talaga kasi yun lang, we are hoping that, if they will stick to the economic reform, fine, that will be a good discourse. We leave it to the economists and the people who are, who have the evidence to speak towards it. Pero ngayon kasi, tinitingnan natin totally naiiwan yung tao because ano talaga right now, the concern is really the rising prices of rice, inflation, etc. Man, bumabalik na naman yung pagtaas ng mga bilihin. So, kailangan siguro kailangan at this context, siguro ito ba yung kailangan na discussion that we need to have?
Mhm.
What are the reforms that can be done at the executive level kung saan pwedeng pabilisan yung mga reforma even at by this administration? Siguro kailangan ituon yung pansin doon kaysa naman mabisi tayong lahat kakadebate dyan sa charter change.
Sorry, more political math, ano?
Sir John, pwede mag-comment mabilis dun sa ano?
Of course.
Dun lang sa numbers game versus sa principles. Ako, I'd like to, definitely mahalaga ang numbers. I actually think na it's not just being pragmatic when we count the numbers. It's also the number of minds and hearts that we are able to convince. And at the end of the day, that's also your democracy trying to work kung saan talagang kailangan natin, we have to make our case. And our case is pretty clear. Klaro yung mga agam-agam natin dyan sa Chacha, klaro din yung mga mas urgent things na alam natin kinakaharap ng mga mamamayan. At mahalaga that yung ganitong yung ating arguments and ang ating case, platform, and principle also translates to the numbers of hearts and people and minds that we are able to convince.
And
Okay.
maybe, so, pwede pa bang mag-add? Konti lang, no? So, again, it's really also the motivation. Because, some people will be against charter change, not because they're for the people, but because they're also after their interest. That's the challenge. So, we have to see through all this facade. No? Because, given na, tama yung sinabi ni Paeng kanina, there's two warring families, the two biggest dynasties that we have. I mean, and the other side would most likely oppose it just for the sake of opposition. Diba? But it's not because probably not because for the interest of the Filipino people, but because of their own family's interest. So we have to see through also the motivation of why some people will oppose it, diba? Not because on the basis of principle, not on the basis of evidence, but on the basis of their personal interest, their family's business interest might also be harmed in the process. So,
That's the perfect segue to my next question, which is about counting heads again. No, can we quantify the opposition to Chacha? I mean, first from the other side of the dynastic wars, no, the Dutertes and their allies. Maybe Paeng first. Of the 7 senators that you've identified in your political mapping, how many of them are Duterte allies?
Well, ang hirap po ang hirap magbigay ng names as of now. But definitely sa political mapping natin may 7 dyan. Siguro po ang magandang tip na lang sa mga sa mga viewers natin at nakikinig, magandang proxy war itong vote sa kay Kibuloy. So, kung gusto nilang malaman sino yung malamang uma-align kay Duterte, yung mga uma-align siguro kay Kibuloy dun sa vote. So, baka pwede pong tingnan nyo na lang po doon. And of course, you have those na talagang anti-Chacha, naniniwala sa mahal dun sa may principle stance against Chacha. So, hindi lang dahil pro-Duterte sila, ay anti-Chacha sila. So, you have of course Risa, kasama niya sa minority si Coco. So, siguro we can just see doon ano yung landscape sa Senate right now.
Leon, has the Duterte faction been reaching out to the smaller parties in the House, for instance? May mga ganong klaseng feelers ba na nararamdaman ngayon?
I've heard. I mean, ayaw naman natin mag-marites, no? Pero of course, it is normal to win over the other parties, no, to their side. I'm sure some people are making calls. I'm sure, but at the end of the day, being a numbers game, it's really normal. It's normal, and that's really, sad as it may sound, but it's the beauty of democracy. It's really winning hearts and minds. But again, we look at the motivation, we look at but yes, what particularly for Aksyon, wala namang nag-reach out pa from either camps to really sway. I mean, but at the end of the day, it won't be anytime soon because now that naipasa na rin, of course there will be voting eventually at the plenary. Of course, everyone will need the numbers.
it's quite clear that there's a threshold sa Senate, because of their small number. The threshold is 7, right? If you can get 7, that will stand in the way of a 3/4 vote for RBH 6. Is there a similar threshold na achievable for the opposition, for those opposed to charter change sa House of Representatives? Or is that already done, like a done deal? If it is a done deal, how can congressmen, and there must be several, no, who are opposed to charter change, make their opposition felt in the House?
Siguro po ang magandang indication to look at that. Of course, may threshold din dyan. 3/4, same. I just don't know exact numbers. We can compute it po siguro. But if any indication, yung nakaabot sila ng signatures per district. Kasi po, tandaan natin, yung People's Initiative nung nakaraan, important na maka 3% ng voters sa bawat distrito ay makuha nila yung signatures. And if their numbers are to be believed at confident sila kasi naipasa na nila sa COMELEC, mukhang bawat distrito sa Pilipinas ay naabot nila yon. Hindi ibig sabihin 100% na congressmen ay for it. Mukhang may mga areas na na-augment yun ng ilang mga party list groups in some areas. Pero if any indication na ganun nila kabilis yung naipasa yung signatures na within almost just a bit over a month, I think merong certain level of compliance yung ating mga legislators sa lower house as far as this push is concerned. Kung gaano sila gung-ho o gaano nila kagusto yung chacha, baka yun yung kailangan nating tansyahin moving forward. Kasi ang mga naririnig po natin na reports ay syempre sa dulo kasi usapin din yan ng sino ang may hawak ng budget, sino ang merong access to allocation of resources. And if nagagamit at na-weaponize yung ating access to resources within the House para maging compliant yung ating mga legislators, yun yung kailangan nating bantayan. And we have to make it costly for our congressmen moving forward. Kaya mahalaga talaga sa bawat distrito, nandun din yung movement ng ating mga kababayan na naninindigan against Chacha para naman mag-second thought yung ating mga kongresista na hindi naman ganun kabilib talaga sa Chacha pero sumusunod na lang kasi nga yun na yung naging political culture din within the Congress at grabe rin yung hold ng supermajority sa resources.
That's right.
So again, numbers, and we're talking up, no? We are talking up to the institutions in charge na kasi medyo con-us na yung track, ano? But let's not forget that even if Constituent Assembly pa ito by both houses, it will still be subjected to a plebiscite. So 50%, yun yung parang numbers pa na mas excited ako makita eh. Parang kasi let's talk to the people. Let's kausapin natin ang mga kababayan natin na bahagi ba talaga tayo sa pag-uusap? Kasi kung na-feel natin hindi tayo part, kung hindi tayo bahagi ng debating yan, hindi tayo kinonsulta, hindi tayo tinanong ng ating mga kongresista, ng ating mga senators, siguro the best way to go about it is through the ballot when they hold the plebiscite, just in case umurangkada man ito, no? And I know, medyo ayaw ni Paeng na umurangkada, ayaw natin na medyo umurangkada, di ba? I-railroad lang ito, but just in case pumasa ito, I mean, kailangan itanong natin sa ating kapwa kababayan, we let them feel also na naging bahagi ba tayo ng proseso? Kung hindi tayo naging bahagi ng proseso, definitely it's a no, di ba? Huwag nating isayang yung ano. So, that's just the numbers naman, which is way down, medyo ano pa yan, phase 2 or ano, just in case may ipasa talaga to kung maipasa at ma-railroad man just in case. But again, it's a numbers game. I think people need to write to their congressmen, congresswomen, write to their senators, organizations have to really make their presence felt and make themselves part of the conversation and make a stand also.
Nabahala ako when President Marcos Jr. Said recently that he wanted the plebiscite to coincide with the May 2025 midterm elections, no? Kasi biglang all of a sudden may nagbigay siya ng schedule. Ang gusto ko malaman, do we see this as marching orders? O hindi ko alam, ano bang tingin niyo? It's the first time that the president has said,
yes,
plebiscite tayo.
Publicly. But alam siguro to ni Paeng, the timelines were earlier, actually. Nung PI, kaya nga minadali itong PI eh. Kung umarangkada yan, mabilis to yung timeline eh. In fact,
okay.
this year nga sana yung magiging plebiscite referendum, gagastos pa ng pagkalaki-laki para lang mag-election tayo, mag-plebiscito tayong lahat, pumunta sa presinto at bumoto para sa charter change through the People's Initiative, no? But ako naman, the pragmatic side is, at least may kasabay siyang election, baka di tayo gagastos, no? But, at least publicly now, at least, the cards are open, na openly, sinasabi niya, yun yung timeline na inaano. So, now at least we all know, whether you're in the opposition or for charter change, that is the timeline that people are working as. We all know naman, Congress usually follows the president. Kung di sasabihin, di gagalaw ng president, that is still currently the reality that we have.
Thank you. And Paeng?
Oo, tama si Leon, no? Ang daming round ng laban na to. Round 1, PI, mukhang medyo nanalo tayo. Round 2, RBH, kailangan manalo tayo. At sana hindi na umabot sa plebiscite. So ako, ang ideal scenario for me, we stop it here pa lang, dito sa discussion sa RBH. Kung sakaling mangyari yan, at yun nga, mukhang sinabi ni President Marcos, yun yung timeline na nakikita niya, medyo, at yun ba yung marching orders? If it's any indication, early Feb, ang sabi ng COMELEC, hindi yun pwede. Kasi around Feb 9, I think, COMELEC Chair Garcia said na the Supreme Court already ruled na hindi pwedeng pagsabayin ang isang plebiscite at isang national elections. At kasi kailangan, bukod sa napopoliticize siya, people need to be focused on constitutional change in their, or the issue at hand, changing the constitution, versus choosing their leaders. So, hindi pwedeng pagsabayin. At ito ay sinabi ni COMELEC Chair Garcia himself. 2 weeks later, nung sinabi ni Marcos na, ni President Marcos na he's looking at this na pagsabayin kasi mas makakamura daw. 13 billion ang expected na gagastusin ng COMELEC. So, mas magiging practical. Nag-iba rin ang tono si COMELEC Chair na nagsinasabi nga niya oo nga, it's more practical. So, when you look at these signs, you of course are, trying to read, is this something na talagang merong pag-utos din, or ito talaga yung desidido silang mangyari, no? So, at yung isang danger pa dyan na gusto natin banggitin ay kung totoong hindi siya pwedeng pagsabayin, at we can check with the rulings of the Supreme Court on this, meron bang fear or concerns na baka hindi matuloy ang 2025 elections kung uunahin nila tong plebiscite? And we've always been warning against that. Is this a way to extend or magkaroon ng no election scenario sa 2025? All these questions we need to raise. Kasi kung talagang they will push with this charter change, maraming pwedeng magbago. And again, this may also undermine our electoral democracy.
I share your concerns, but I fear, I'm afraid that the barangay elections will be the ones postponed again. No? Doon tayo parating na tatamaan. Maybe one or two more questions, if you don't mind. No? Can we talk about what so we're talking about a dynastic war. Okay, this is a war of two elephants. No. What are the other players or the other animals doing around this? Again, thank you for helping us read the situation. What's the situation for the other political parties like yours, and the party list groups? Paeng first, and then Leon.
Okay, so at least po yung mga nakakausap natin na mga similar-minded groups, political parties, also members of the civil society movement here in the Philippines, sectoral groups, labor groups, youth leaders, church. Nakikita po natin na sa issue na ito, we need to provide an alternative voice. Kasi hindi pwedeng yung boses ng pro-chacha na mas malapit sabihin natin sa administration, or yung mga mas malapit sa faction naman ng Duterte. Kasi in the choice between a Marcos or a Duterte faction within government, parang for us, it's a false choice. We believe na they're made of the same fabric, sharing and championing the interests of the same elite class. So napakahalaga that we provide an alternative voice, kaya po talagang very much nakatutok tayo sa pagbubuo ng mga koalisyon na tututol dito sa charter change. Recently lang po, itong February, medyo busy po tayo. Ang daming nangyari mula dun sa Buhay ng EDSA Campaign Network, kung saan kasama po natin yung iba-iba pang mga political parties and again, civil society groups. Kasama rin po natin yung church dun sa koalisyon laban sa Chacha na pinamumunuan din at isa sa mga key leaders ay si Senator Lisa Ontiveros. At gayon din yung mga kabataan natin nagsasama-sama din para magkaroon ng Alliance of Youth Organizations Against Chacha. So yung ibang mga grupo, at least nakikita natin na naghahanap ng ibang boses kasi yung nakikita natin sa dynastic war na ito, baka maraming maulila. Many will be orphaned by those na nalilito na dati part sila ng Uniteam, supporting sila sa Uniteam. Ngayong nag-aaway yung kanilang yung Duterte at Marcos, yung magkakabit doon sa Uniteam na yon, malamang many will be confused. And we need to provide an alternative for those who will be orphaned by this dynastic war. Provide a certain level of clarity as well doon sa nangyayaring showdown dun sa dalawang pamilya.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Kami naman sa Aksyon, tuloy pa rin yung pagpapaliwanag. I think mahalaga yung magkaroon ng continuous discussion at discourse sa ating mga iba't ibang mga grupo. We consult also our party mates, may mga Aksyon Kabataan, may mga ibang grupo. Also, I think mahalaga talaga yung pag-organisa and making sure that, magulo kasi yung pag-usapan, lalo na if nagiging muddled yung discussion because of these warring, distractions, so to speak. So, I think mahalaga talaga for groups like ours, kahit hindi man kami super malaki, pero ang mahalaga yung boses talaga din ng mamamayan, boses ng regular party mates, ng mga membro ay naririnig. Hindi man tayo totally mag-agree 100% as a group. I think mahalaga na mapagnilay-nilayan. Yun nga, the clarity, sabi ni Paeng, ma-enlighten natin ang ating mga kasama, ma-present natin yung mga pros and cons of the different issues at hand and go back to what is our principle as a party, as an organization. Siguro mahalaga yun. And I think, I hope that resonates with all other organizations, trying to make sense of what is happening now. Siguro we just focus on the issues at hand. We can see naman that this is really a war that is not to our benefit, di ba? Whoever wins, feel namin talo pa rin yung taong bayan. Ang mahalaga dito is the issues at hand. Are you aligned to the principles of your organization? Yun yung dapat natin pag-isipan. Kung ikaw youth leader, itong mga nangyayari, itong mga issues that are facing us, are we making sense of it? Are we trying to explain it? Are we reading on it? Are we also reading ano yung iniisip ng ating mga kapwa members at mga fellow leaders? So siguro yung proseso of making people part of the discussion, of the conversation, because hindi pwedeng yung dalawang nag-aawing uri lamang ang merong boses. Tayo talaga, sa tamang sinabi ni Paeng, alternative voices, we need to emerge other alternative voices, and I think that voices are voices of the youth and other sectors.
Last question for the both of you. In this current attempt to change the Constitution, what should we watch out for in the next, let's say, 3 months? In the second quarter of the year, what are some of the possible flashpoints, for instance, or danger signs that we should be on the lookout for? Paeng first, and then Leon.
For sure, bantayan natin itong nangyayari sa RBH 7 at RBH 6. We need to watch out for, especially our senators, kasi at this point sila yung parang talagang nagsisilbing foil doon sa pagre-railroad ng charter change. So we have to stand by our Senate, make sure na, and we also need to call on our senators na manindigan para sa talagang gusto ng mga mamamayan at hindi yon charter change. At pangalawa, kailangan natin i-ensure na yung People's Initiative ay talagang hindi na magpo-prosper at mitutuloy kasi yung mga signatures andoon lang sa COMELEC. So kailangan natin ipaalala sa COMELEC na hindi natin talaga pirma yan ay peking People's Initiative. So ating i-make sure na hindi na talaga siya matutuloy. And finally, siguro napakahalaga that as this nag-evolve at nag-unfold itong mga discussions on charter change, that we, and I agree with Leon with this, we are part of that conversation. We have to lalo na sa Holy Week, yung mga mamamayan, tayo ay manawagan sa mga leaders natin at tayo din magnilay-nilay saan ba natin gusto dalhin talaga yung ating bansa. Definitely, this charter change is kumbaga distraction siya, and kailangan tayong mga mamamayan ay magsama-sama din manindigan para dun sa talagang interes nating mga ordinaryong mamamayan.
Thank you.
Kailangan bantayan yung boto, kailangan bantayan yung mga discussion, yung mga plenary discussions. Of course, lahat naman tayo may sariling trabaho, may ginagawa. Pero I think magmanman at kailangan mag-monitor talaga ng maayos. We make our presence felt and really write our senators, our congressmen and women, making sure na alam nila that, as an organization, we stand by it. So, kailangan siguro tingnan natin, tanungin natin, where does our district representative stand on this issue? Yung mga binoto natin senator, yung iba na sinuportahan natin senator, where do they stand on this issue? No? So, yun yung first and foremost kailangang bantayan talaga. I think while Senate is a very important institution, siguro I'm not losing hope that we can still persuade some of our congressmen and women also na siguro to take more introspection coming into this issue. So yun lang, kasi take note, merong mga issues na na-insert, may budget na-insert, how much more ito pa? If i-railroad ito, mas mabilisin, talagang we need to be on the lookout for signs. There has to be transparency, it has to be inclusive, make sure na alam nila yung stand natin, and we hold them accountable because we voted for our lawmakers, itong mga congressista at senators, we hold them accountable for whatever their vote will be. So kailangan bantayan, manmanan in the next 2 to 3 months. I agree, there's gonna be a Holy Week break, but pagbalik niyan, session ulit, tingnan natin kung paano to arangkada, and we make sure also that we work on educating ourselves about the issues at hand on charter change.
Thank you, Akbayan President Rafaela David and Aksyon Demokratiko Secretary General Leon Flores III. This has been an instructive, sobering, clarifying discussion. Thank you. That's it for us tonight. The next step for engaged citizens, as always, is to take a more active part in rebuilding our democracy. See you in the public square. This is John Nery. Thank you and good night.